The Ruger 1022 very well might be the most popular 22 in the world. In 1965, Bill Ruger began selling the firearm to the American public. The original title was the Ruger 1022 Carbine, and this carbine name was very important for marketing. Ruger wanted their 22 to look and feel like the popular military service rifle, the M1 and M2 carbine, or as it was often referred to at the time, the 30 carbine. From the get-go, this rifle just made sense. It was a super cheap and reliable 22 caliber autoloader with plenty of style. At launch, it would be offered with a birch stock and blued finish. There isn't a ton to say about the history of this firearm. It was popular in the 60s, it was popular in the 70s, it was popular in the 80s. Because this was a domestically produced rimfire with youth shooting and small game hunting in mind, the US government never made any moves to stop it. It has always just been tactical enough to pique the interest of the American sportsman without being scary enough for the anti-gun crowd to come after it. It happened to skirt perfectly under the nose of the Brady Bill in 1994 and has been almost completely unaltered for nearly 60 years. You can still buy these dirt cheap today, just as Bill Ruger intended. So, why did it hold up and why is it still popular? Well, at the time, a reliable 22 long rifle was unheard of, especially with a detachable magazine. The 22 long and short present a problem to modern gun design because they're a rimmed cartridge. This means that it's very difficult to make a magazine that feeds consistently. So most 22s in the 60s were either tube fed or happened to be revolvers or bolt guns. Ruger got around this little problem by not using a box magazine. Instead, they were the first company to start using a rotary detachable magazine. Think of this as a revolver cylinder that can be swapped out at will. And because of patent law, it would be years before anyone else would be able to catch up. For decades, Ruger was the undisputed champ of the 22 rifle, and guys just really fell in love with it. If you've ever shot one of these, you get it. At the time of writing and recording, 22 Thunderbolt is about $50 for 500 rounds. Could you imagine getting 308 that cheap? Even 9mm is far more expensive than that. The thing that really keeps the 1022 in vogue today is the aftermarket. There are so many options to customize this gun. So many stocks, triggers, and whole receivers. And don't even get me started on the barrel selection. It takes 5 to 10 minutes to change out the barrel on this gun, so naturally guys are going to do that. And you can build them with completely aftermarket parts, completely circumventing Ruger altogether.
Good morning, YouTube. Today we are talking about the Ruger 1022, maybe the most prolific 22 in the shooting space. Definitely in the United States, right? I mean, you can't toss a rock without hitting one of these. Every gun store you walk into is going to have new and used 1022s. And you can actually build one of these with 0 Ruger parts, right? So that's cool. How many guns can you say that for? Because you can go on to brownells.com. You can buy the Brownells receiver with the rail. This isn't one, but you can buy one. This is an aftermarket trigger. This happens to be a Ruger barrel on mine. I have a Ruger barrel and action, but those are the only Ruger parts on here, right? Aftermarket stock, which I mean, there are just hundreds and hundreds of stocks out there for these. Obviously, Ruger does not make 45 caliber suppressors. Yeah, this is not, Ruger doesn't make binary triggers, at least not that I know of. I have an aftermarket mag release, which is cool. The stock one's kind of a push button. I also have an aftermarket, kind of easier to grab bolt catch. Ruger bolt though. But basically you can go online to Brownells or Midway, and you can build this entire gun with no OEM parts. That's amazing, right? You can use OEM magazines. I like the Ruger mags, but like no one says you have to use the BX22 magazines, BX25s, right? Should you own one? Yeah, you should definitely own one. This is one of those guns. It's on that list. In my 12 gauge video, I talked about guns that every American ought to own. And like the 1022 is up there, right? Like a 1911, a 1022, and a 12 gauge shotgun. That's gonna make me sound like a boomer, right? People are gonna be like, oh, a 1911 and a 1022. But it's like, I don't know, I'm not saying you have to use those for like tactical applications, but I'm just saying go spend $300 on a brand new 1022 and shoot the ammo until you get bored. right? If you're like in college, or if you're like an E2 or an E3 in the military and you don't make that much money, right? I mean, BAS will cover the rifle, right? Just eat ramen for a month. Now you have a little 22. The ammo, I think it's like $50 for 500 rounds. Like, how do you beat that? That's weeks of shooting, or one fun afternoon with your buddies. I mean, you have $50, I'm sure. It's super quiet, right? And a lot of indoor ranges will let you shoot this. You can't take your AR to the indoor range. And obviously, the muscle memory is not going to be the same, right? You have a silly mag release, you have a silly safety. But like the shooting fundamentals you pick up with the 22, which I guess this applies to any 22. I just happen to like the 10/22. But I mean, you can learn the fundamentals of shooting and you can practice the fundamentals of shooting for dirt cheap almost anywhere, really. If you have any land, if you have 3 acres, you can shoot your 22, right? Heck, maybe even 1.5 acres if you have a big berm at the end of it and your neighbors are chill. Or if you don't have any neighbors, right? If you live out in the woods and you have 1.5 acres, you can practice shooting, right? You can take this in the woods, you can shoot rabbits, you can shoot squirrels. The Israelis actually consider this a less than lethal. So they use this for riot control. I can't say that I would consider a 40 grain projectile less than lethal. I mean, we have rubber bullets, and I know those kind of mess people up, so I can only imagine how much a hollow point's gonna do. But super cool. I think they're a terrific rifle. I've shot hundreds and hundreds of rounds through this. It's something that you can always take to the range if you're going with your buddies, you know, and you bring your guns that shoot expensive ammo, right? You bring the AR-10, you bring like some AKs, some ARs, you bring the Mini 14, and you shoot those a little bit. But then, I mean, you shoot this for an hour for almost free, right? That's a no-brainer. And everyone has fun with the 10/22. There's zero recoil. I don't wear hearing protection at all when I shoot this. Even with the suppressor off, it is quiet enough. You should wear hearing protection, but I usually kind of don't. I think they're a terrific rifle, right? It's cool that they've kind of escaped gun control, like indefinitely, right? It's a rimfire. You can still buy these in Canada, right? In Canada, where you can't own any centerfire rifle or even like handguns, basically, right? But you can still buy one of these and go have fun. You can still shoot squirrels and rabbits. And honestly, I mean, bullet placement's everything. 22 caliber hollow points, it wouldn't be my first choice for self-defense, but I can tell you, if you put 10 rounds into a home invader in the middle of the night, like 10 hollow points, he's not going to be moving and grooving anymore. You know, I mean, that's kind of going to neutralize the threat. So, you know, possible home defense, especially, you know, the little Ruger Mark III and Mark IV handguns. Fairly quiet, fairly light, and 10 hollow points does generally stop most animals. I've heard of people shooting moose up in Alaska with the little Henry survival rifles in 22, and I would believe it. I wouldn't personally shoot at a moose with a 22, but bullet placement's everything, you know? People underestimate the 22, but it's a fairly capable cartridge for what it is. Ruger used to make this in a 22 Magnum, which ballistically is basically a 5.7, right? Which is super cool, but those are getting kind of expensive. They stopped making them in 2006. Kind of a bummer. I like 22 mag, but it is what it is. But I guess at the end of the day, I would say if you don't own a 10/22, go get a 10/22 and clean it every time you shoot it because it will jam. But yeah. All right, so this is my 10/22. It currently sits in a free-floated stock, you'll notice, all the way forward. You have to make the most out of that 40 grain projectile. Thumb hole stock, very cool. I actually haven't seen a lot of these around. My dad got it at a garage sale for like $5 and gave it to me. So that's pretty cool. Very cool stock. I think it makes it look pretty unique. On the top, I've got this Picatinny rail, which it came with from the factory. I've got a little red dot on there. Nothing crazy, just a cheap Browning 22 red dot. See if it's on. Yeah, you should be able to see in there maybe. You can see it says collector's edition because this was the 2020 vote edition, which I did vote in 2020, so that's cool. I don't know if they have a 2024 vote edition, but this originally had an American flag stock. I have it somewhere in a box, but I think this looks a little more unique. It's got these like 30 carbine M14 style rear peep and front wing sight, which I think is pretty cool. 18.5-inch barrel, and it is threaded 1/2 by 28, which is cool, but it does make this rifle ridiculously long. Let me take this suppressor off. Yeah, it's built Ford tough. Even with the suppressor off, this is still like just a really long little rifle. It's lightweight, right? I mean, the whole thing weighs like nothing. And it's pretty slim and streamlined, but it's just really long. I mean, 18.5-inch barrel is kind of funny on a 22, but I mean, it makes it fairly quiet. And for a 22, it's a pretty accurate little gun. I've shot the crap out of this because I mean, you can shoot it for next to nothing, right? I mean, the ammo is basically free. I noticed that these little 10 rounders are my favorite magazines. They go in here and they sit flush. I think it looks pretty cool. And you get 10 rounds, which I think is enough generally for the 1022. And these are super reliable. Got Ruger on there. And then the Ruger BX25s are a 25 round magazine. And they're also terrific and fairly reliable. They stick down a little further. I've had bad luck with the aftermarket magazines, but the 10 rounders and the BX25s are terrific. I mean, they've been making these for 60, 70 years now. Since 1964, they've been making the rotary mag. So really fantastic magazine. I'm pretty happy with this. Obviously, you can do a lot with the 1022. The big ticket item on here, I have the 30 carbine style safety, which is cool. So you have safe, semi, which is right. We all know that. And then binary, which is cool. Very fun. This has such a fast firing rate that you can't really outrun it. I mean, I'm sure a guy could if you got really good, but I don't really outrun this like you do with the AR, especially with the back pressure from this can. It makes it so it's rapid fire. It's like a constant noise. If you're shooting like a piece of metal, it's about 5 seconds of just one single ring, which is really cool. It's like a hose that just shoots lead instead of water. So very cool rifle. Definitely one of my favorite 22s that I own. Probably one of the coolest 22s I've ever shot, really. Generally, it puts a smile on people's face, and you can shoot it for next to free, so I don't mind letting people shoot it. Unlike something like the AK-74, it's hard to find 5.45 by 3.9. That's tough to hand off at the range and say, hey, shoot 30 rounds. But this, I mean, shoot 100 rounds, right? I've got $5. So, terrific rifle. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I made a YouTube short about the 1022, and I didn't know, apparently, this is like a hot take now. I made kind of a shit post, like a little joke about like the liberals not really liking binary triggers, but apparently in the comments section, apparently liberals love binary triggers, which is silly, I guess. But I mean, I hope that everybody should love the binary triggers. Fantastic, right? But I was surprised to see the comments that I saw. I thought people were going to think it was funny, but some people seemed like genuinely offended that I would assume that like the modern left would not really be in favor of the binary trigger system. Something that has been banned in California, you can't buy them. In Maryland, you can't buy them. In New Jersey, which are like, it's interesting that, I mean, left-leaning politicians certainly seem to not like the binary trigger system, but apparently the average Harris voter does like it. I don't know. Tell me in the comments. Everyone should like it. We should all have one. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike and comment in the comments what you think. We're going to be reviewing a handgun next. I'm going to put out a poll. It's going to be a Glock 17, 19, a 1911, or an M18. So watch out for that poll. All right, thanks for watching.